Hey everybody, welcome back to American History with Mr. Finn. Today we are moving into the modern era. What does that mean? We are going to be speaking now about the late 1800s. Very influential time in America. We are seeing a transition time period happening here. So from the time of Reconstruction, really from the time of the end of the Civil War in the mid 1860s, but let's just for whatever purposes, let's just say 1870, even though 1877 was the end of Reconstruction, I know, to 1900. We are going to see in this 30-year period a major transformation in culture and in just society in general. And that really is going to be this. Long word. Industrialization. We talked a little bit about industrialization, or the idea that in the North they had factories already starting and railroads beginning and industrializing and like wrapping their arms around industry in general and like doing factories and stuff like that. But from 1870 to 1900, we see a jump through the roof. In fact, there was, and this might not mean anything huge to you, but I'm just going to put it up here anyway. Maybe I'll ask you maybe I'll quiz you on this one. 500,000 patents. And what is a patent, you might ask? Well, a patent means it gives you the rights. Patent rights. Let's do this. Rights to property / invention. A little small at the edge there, but you can get it. Just pause it. So a patent gives you the right. So say you invent something and you say, hey, I don't want, my next door neighbor to see what I invented. Then he invents it and then he sells it and makes a bunch of money. No. I have the rights to it. I own this idea of whatever I made or whatever I'm going to create or produce. And we're going to see 500,000 patents during this time period. That's a lot. Again, I know it's just a random number to you right now. But this idea of 500,000 patents means there is a lot of people doing a lot of inventing and a lot of thinking, and a lot of new things are happening that are coming from industrialization. One big one is petroleum, which is going to lead us to gasoline. So we're going to start to see things like we're going to see gasoline. We're going to see engines that work on like steam power. So railroads and steamships and things like that. Refrigeration is a big one. You start to see like, once you have to have this first. Electricity. There was no lights. Think about this. In 1870, you operated based on daytime. When the sun came up, you did things. When the sun went down, you could light a candle, but you couldn't do much. All of a sudden, electricity is going to allow for a 24-hour day. New careers, new jobs open up. You could have things like the night shift that you never had before. It was never a thing. Cities get larger. People want to make more money because we're going to start to see the rise of big business here. And big business is all about making money. But all these things are starting to pop up. And all of these are what lead to our inventions and ideas, right? Like I said, electricity exists, or they harness electricity. Thomas Edison. I don't know if it'll be on your quiz, but it might. Edison, he invents hundreds and thousands of things. He's best known for the light bulb. So Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb, harnessing electricity, just leads to things like I was saying with refrigeration. The idea that, hey, look, we can keep things cold. Things won't spoil. If before this, they would cut ice out of ponds and lakes and things like that and use that ice to keep things cold. like through like the warmer months. Now you have refrigeration. You can buy things and put them somewhere, and they can stay fresh much longer because you have refrigeration. So electricity is going to lead to that. Electricity is going to lead to all kinds of different things. Steam power, like I said, with the ships and the railroads and things like that. Eventually we're going to see gasoline working for cars. The automobile is going to be invented just after 1900. So things are really going pretty quickly. All right. This is a time period somewhat similar to what took place in the United States and around the world, actually, from the year 1990 to 1920, like where we're at right now. Maybe 1980, like a 30-year period, 40-year period, where we're actually they're in the industrial age. We would be in the technological age, right? So when I was growing up, cell phones weren't a thing. Now I have an iPhone. We used to have phones in the house. You couldn't get a hold of anyone. You didn't have the internet. I didn't have the internet when I was a kid. It didn't exist. It's crazy. But in a short amount of time, historically, all of a sudden we have all these different things. I mean, we've gone from tablets, we've gone from people want big phones to small phones, big phones back to small phones again. We have tablets, we have all of this technology, social media, 24-hour news cycles, all of this stuff streaming. There was no Netflix, none of that stuff existed. And all of that has happened in the last 30 years of my life. And I've seen it go from having none of that to having all of this. Similar time period to this. We go from having no light to now having buildings that you can flip a light switch on and there's light. That didn't exist in a 30-year period. We're going to see the rise of something. The rise of big cities. Cities were small. Cities had always been small. We have our first wave of immigration. More and more people are coming in. The rise of big cities on two sides. One, they start popping up in different places, but also they start to move up, like literally rise. With the ability to harness steel, we can build larger buildings. We'll talk about steel a little bit later with one of our entrepreneurs, our big business people. But all in all, what is important to understand is if you look at the East Coast during this time period, you are seeing new things every day. New things. The paper bag, right? The paper bag didn't exist for like lunches, right? Now it does. Just a random little invention, right? Just a random little thing. But it didn't exist before, now it does. And you're seeing all of these things rise up and pop up. And that's what's happening during this time period. What your assignment today is, 'cause that's all we're talking about, just want to give you an intro into what we're going to be getting at as far as, we're really going to take a look at industrialization after this and, who benefits from it? What's its effect on society? That's what we're going to be really getting into. How is it changing things? One thing that gets created, though, you may or may not know this. You may or may not have heard of time zones. So here's your questions, very easy. What time zone are you in? And what are the various time zones? 2 questions today. There they are. What time zone are you in? What are the various time zones? And just to give you a little bit of a hint, the United States is broken into time zones. I'm not going to tell you how many, because you're going to have to look them up. And I'm not going to tell you which one you're in, because that's one of the questions. However, like right now, it's 9:30 where I am right now. Guess what? At this exact minute, in New York, it is 2 hours later. So it's 9:30 right now. that means it's 11:30. So if I called my family in New York and said, hey, what time is it? They'd be like, it's 11:30. I'd be like, wow, look at that. They're in a different time zone. That is what time zones are. So I want you to look into this. What one are you in, and what are the various time zones? How many are there? What are they called? Anyway, turn that into me today. You guys do a great job getting this stuff in, by the way. So, keep that up. But for attendance purposes and participation, make sure you get that today, which, again, you guys have been doing great. And I will see you next class.